Forest, wood, carbon. We have one resource which can be used for almost everything, and at the same time reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Carbon can be found in all living material. Through photosynthesis, the energy from the sun, carbon dioxide and water is transformed to carbohydrates, which are the material for tree growth. Through this process, the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is stored as carbon compounds in trees and forest land. Carbon dioxide is also stored in wood products from the forest, such as the house you live in or the book you read. When the products from the forest come to an end and are used as fuel or decompose, the carbon dioxide comes back to the atmosphere. But the same amount of carbon dioxide will be taken up by the growing trees. Swedish wood has many uses, but this film is about solid wood products. The first step and the most important part of the Swedish forest industry is Swedish Forestry, of which almost 100% is certified according to FSC or PEFC. Swedish timber has created work and wealth in Sweden for a long time and accounts for a major part of Swedish exports. Scattered all over Sweden, there are many small and large sawmills, which create jobs in small cities and communities all over the country. To deliver timber, one harvests forest every day in Sweden. But if one should harvest the same amount in the future, one must create new forest after harvesting. In Sweden, 80 million cubic meters of forest is harvested annually. But if one thinks about the forest resources during the last 100 years, the annual growth is 120 million cubic meters. This means that our standing volume of wood increases by 40 million cubic meters annually. This is similar to about 800,000 trucks with timber. The growth in the forest in Sweden since the beginning of the 1900s has been greater than the annual cut, which means that the forest resources have steadily increased, and it will continue to do so in the coming years. The amount of hardwood has also increased. There is a potential for further expansion parallel to more environment consideration. Here we see Nornen, the orchids of the spruce forest. Properly managed wood is perhaps the best material in the world and is a renewable resource for coming generations. The properties of a stem vary between species and within trees. If we look into a pine, we will find 3 different types of wood, all with different properties. The first 15 to 20 years is juvenile wood. The inner part also has heartwood, which is dead cells with substances which make the wood resistant to decomposition. Outside the heartwood comes the living sapwood, which transports water and nutrients to the tree. The amount of heartwood decreases higher up in the tree, but the big difference between a butt log and a top log is the amount of knots. These tree logs come from the same tree, but we get very different types of wood. In the big butt log, we get clear wood without knots, which can be used for woodwork and floors, etc. In the middle log, we will find dead knots. This is bigger dead branches under the living crown. Wood from this log will be used for constructions and packing. In the top log, we will find fresh living knots from the living crown. The wood from this type of log will be used for glulam, floors, etc. When harvesting the forest, one considers the wood properties of the different log types. A lot of research is going on in this field, for example at Skogforsk, the Forestry Research Institute of Sweden, and at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences in Uppsala. The harvest is carried out in sensitive areas, mainly in wintertime when the ground is frozen, to minimize the damage on the ground. There are different types of harvest. Thinning is carried out when the trees are between 30 to 80 years old. This is done to open up the forest and gives room for the best trees to grow. When the trees are grown to the dimension and quality one is looking for, the final harvest will be carried out. The age of the trees will be about 80 to 120 years. A harvester is a very advanced machine with computers and electronics. The stem will be measured during the delimbing and will be cut following a computerized price list based on dimension and quality. The forwarder takes the saw logs, pulpwood, and energy logs out of the forest to the landing. The harvester and the forwarder are big machines, and used improperly, they will cause great damage to the ground. However, with knowledge, one can minimize the damage and optimize the harvest. At Skogforsk, there is a harvest simulator for testing and evaluating different harvesting methods. The wood will be transported from the forest by trucks, pulpwood to the pulp mills, saw logs to the sawmills, and energy wood to the fuel plant. When the wood arrives at the sawmill, it will be measured for payment. The logs are graded by independent log graders. The logs are then sorted in classes related to diameter, length, and quality for payment. There could be visible defects on the log surface, which indicate defects inside the log, such as knots, rot, or other damage. But not everything is visible to the naked eye. So nowadays, a lot of mills have X-ray scanners to check the internal properties of the logs. Through this, we get indications of the amount of heartwood, knot structure, and properties. The dream has always been to be able to look into the logs so you know what you buy and how you can utilize the log, as well as how to saw it. For this reason, there has been more than 30 years of experimentation, research, and testing of different ways and technical methods for how best to X-ray logs. Luleå Technical University in Skellefteå has been a leading player in this research thanks to a CT X-ray scanner. By this technique, the same as in our hospitals, one gets a full and complete picture of the inside of a log. This research has led to simple scanning techniques, which are now found in many sawmills. The Swedish sawmills can be seen as leading in this field. The reason to sort logs in batches is to better optimize the saw patterns in relation to the log properties. By batching the sawing of logs with similar properties, the yield and efficiency can be more effective. During the summer, when the logs can be attacked by fungi, one has to sprinkle the logs. Today, the sprinkling system is climate responsive, so the water is minimized with respect to existing weather. The storage is due to the harvesting being reduced during the summer and more concentrated during the winter. It sometimes happens that the summer storage will already be built up in January by so-called snow storage, when frozen logs will be covered by snow and above with sawdust and bark. The logs will remain frozen during the whole summer. Up to the 70s, the sawmills in Sweden were dominated by frame saws. Some are still running. Frame sawing still has some advantages, but can be seen more as Swedish saw culture. Today, most of the mills are high-tech factories. Almost everything is run by automation and followed from control rooms. Before sawing, the logs will be debarked. The debarking is based on a Swedish invention, cambio debarking. Everything is used. The bark will be burned and the heat goes to the kilns. Often, the sawmills also supply heat to the nearby communities. Before sawing, the log shapes will be measured once more to get an exact three-dimensional form to optimize the sawing. Trees which were planted 100 years ago will now be sawn up in a few seconds. Today, the sawing is mainly done in so-called profile lines of different brands. This technology is based on cutters, chipper, saws, which in different steps make an outer profile of the saw pattern, which then is divided into boards. About 50% of the logs will be boards, 35% chips for the pulp industry, and the rest goes to the board industry, or will be made into pellets. Mathematical models are applied to optimize the economic output from the valuable raw material. Planks and boards are scanned by techniques such as X-ray, acoustics, laser, and cameras to be sorted with respect to knot structure and strength. Within this field, the speedy development of new technology is leading to optimal wood utilization. When planks and boards are produced, they are not ready for use. Now the kiln drying starts. To get effective drying, the boards are stacked to get good air ventilation. Drying is a very important step. Through proper drying, cracks and other defects can be reduced. After the drying, the boards are checked and sorted once more, and at the end, the sawn wood will be packed for delivery or further processed in the mill. The production of sawn wood in Sweden is about 16 million cubic meters. Of this, 12 million is exported and 4 million stays in Sweden. Many countries purchase wood from Sweden. The three most important are Great Britain, Egypt, and Germany. Parallel with a growing industry and growing exports, the wood resources in Sweden have expanded. The wood which stays in the country has many different uses. An important use of sawn wood is house building. Many houses which were built more than 100 years ago are still standing. In Sweden, about 85% of all single-family houses are built with wood. And today, there are many companies which fabricate houses. One starts by building a bottom section for the walls. Almost everything is built in the factory, and out comes sections of the house, which are transported to the place where the house is to be built. The house is put together easily. The trusses are also fabricated. During a day, the house will be ready. As the knowledge of wood is increasing, there is increased building of larger houses using wood. There are many advantages with wood, and thus many builders prefer to get their material from the forest. For larger wood constructions, glulam beams are used. At the glulam beam factories, boards are finger jointed together and glue is applied to the boards. A board is normally weakest at the knots. Weak sections are therefore glued together with strong ones, and on the surface, extra strong boards are placed, producing very strong beams. The fabrication of glulam beams is steadily being developed, and wood with different properties is glued together in smarter ways. More and more sport arenas are built with glulam beams. Glulam beams are very good in the long run and result in very durable constructions, as evidenced by this bridge over the river Skellefteå. Window frames and doors for housing are also often made of wood. It is important to use knot-free and heartwood-rich wood. To get knot-free wood, one cuts short knot-free sections after scanning, which are then finger-jointed together. Now one has perfect material to work with. Window frames and doors are produced in both small factories and in large factories, where all modern technologies are used. Window frames and doors are produced both for the domestic and export markets. Floors are also a product from the forest. Both parquet and solid wooden floors are manufactured at many factories in the country. Increasingly smarter solutions are being developed to make it easier to lay a floor, and one must consider flexibility with respect to trends in wood species, knots, and color. The finest wood, often from the butt log, is used for decor and furniture. The manufacturing of furniture is based on knowledge from architects, artists, and craftsmen. In Sweden, there are many factories for furniture, both small and large. Wood from the middle log from the trees with dead black knots is often used for packets and pallets. Through this, the whole tree will be used. Packets are produced for small and large products. One makes packets, for example, for food and beverages, and for special items like engines, clutches, and airplane parts. A very important link in the use of wood is our building supply enterprises, for both professional and private builders. Robots, computers, technical measurements, and new inventions are introduced faster and faster in the wood industry. Here, a bookshelf is produced from boards to delivery. The wood is scanned, cut, joined, nailed, and packed automatically. This bookshelf can then be delivered to almost anywhere in the world. Parallel to robot production, there is room for artists. Almost all our musical instruments are based on wood. Wood is selected by knowledge and genuine feeling for the wood. Some geographical districts have wood which has unique properties just for musical instruments. Even the Swedish dollarhäst, a symbol of Sweden, is still based on the use of knife and wood knowledge. As in most situations, education and knowledge is the key to success. In the field of forestry and wood in the future, one will need extensive knowledge in chemistry, physics, biology, economics, and technology. One also needs knowledge from artists and architects, but perhaps most of all from entrepreneurs. Forest and wood is a renewable resource for a sustainable future. Wood generates income from export. Forest and wood means employment and a vibrant living countryside. Swedish wood resources have increased over the last 100 years for both softwood and hardwoods. Through knowledge, there is an enormous potential for coming generations to use this never-ending resource.